The distress signal arrived at Earth's Luna base at 3:27 a.m. Earth Standard Time. Lieutenant Samantha Hayes rubbed her tired eyes and stared at the blinking light on her console. Night shift at the Deep Space Monitoring Station was usually quiet. "Not tonight. This can't be right," she muttered, adjusting her headset. The message was coming from the Arcturus system over 40 light-years away. Samantha pressed the playback button. A scratchy voice filled her ears. The translator program struggled with the alien language, but the message was clear enough. "Please help. Draconian forces have attacked our homeworld. We are a peaceful people. We cannot fight. We request minimal assistance. Please." She immediately alerted her superior officer, who alerted his superior, and within an hour, the message had reached Admiral John Miller, commander of Earth's 7th Fleet. The 7th Fleet was not Earth's pride and joy. Far from it. The 5 ships that made up the fleet were old, outdated, and scheduled for decommissioning within the year. The crews were either new recruits getting their first taste of space, or veterans counting the days until retirement. They called it the salvage fleet because most of the ships had been repaired so many times that they were more patched than original hull. Admiral Miller stood before the United Defense Council the next morning. The large view screen displayed the alien message for all 12 council members to hear. "The Arcturians," said General Laura Duncan, head of the council. "We've had limited contact with them. They're known to be peaceful. Some reports suggest they might have telepathic abilities." "And the Draconians?" asked Miller. "Aggressive. Expansionist. They strip planets of resources and move on. We've kept our distance from them so far." Admiral Miller nodded. "The Arcturians are specifically asking for minimal help. They're afraid that a large military response might provoke the Draconians further." "Or it's a trap," said Colonel Frank Peterson, the most suspicious member of the council. "Lure us in with a small force, then ambush us." General Duncan sighed. "We can't ignore a direct plea for help. It would send the wrong message to the galactic community. Earth needs allies." "I volunteer the 7th Fleet," Admiral Miller said. The room fell silent. Then a few chuckles broke out. "The salvage fleet?" Colonel Peterson scoffed. "Those ships barely make it through training exercises." "Exactly," Miller replied. "The Arcturians asked for minimal assistance. The 7th is minimal. Plus, if it is a trap, we're not risking our best ships and crews." General Duncan studied Miller's face. "You're serious. Dead serious. And I know just the person to lead the mission." Captain Ethan Wright was not having a good day even before he got the call. The USS Vigilant, the destroyer he had commanded for 7 years, had suffered another cooling system failure. The ship was 30 years old, built just after humanity's first contact with alien life. It should have been in a museum, not active duty. "Captain, Admiral Miller is on the secure channel for you," his communications officer reported. Wright sighed and went to his small, cluttered office. The Admiral's weathered face appeared on the screen. "Wright, how soon can the Vigilant be ready? For a long-range mission?" Miller asked without preamble. "Sir, we're dealing with coolant issues again. Engineering says—" "I need a time frame, Captain." Wright paused. 48 hours minimum. "But sir, this ship is due for decommissioning in 5 months. She's held together with duct tape and prayers." "Perfect," Miller said, which was not the response Wright expected. "You're being deployed to the Arcturus system, taking the whole 7th Fleet, briefing in 1 hour." The screen went blank before Wright could respond. 2 hours later, Captain Wright stood in his ship's briefing room with his senior officers, Lieutenant Lisa Perez, his tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Alan Garcia, Chief Engineer, Dr. Patricia Clark, the ship's medical officer and xenobiologist, and Lieutenant Kevin Mitchell, Navigation Officer. "The Arcturians have asked for our help against a draconian invasion force," Wright explained, showing them the message. "We leave in 48 hours along with the rest of the 7th Fleet." "The salvage fleet against draconian warships?" Lieutenant Perez asked, her voice tight with tension. "Sir, the Draconians have quantum torpedoes and phase shields. We're running on technology that was outdated a decade ago." "I'm aware, Lieutenant," Wright said. That's why we need to be smarter, not stronger. Lieutenant Commander Garcia ran a hand through his graying hair. Captain, I can get the coolant system working, but I can't promise for how long. The Vigilant wasn't built for a mission like this. None of our ships were, Wright agreed. But they're what we have. Dr. Clark, what can you tell us about the Arcturians? Dr. Clark brought up an image of a tall, slender alien with pale blue skin and large, expressive eyes, physically fragile compared to humans. Their society values harmony and cooperation. They're technologically advanced but have focused on science and art rather than weapons. Wright nodded. And our enemies? The image changed to a reptilian figure with armored scales and sharp teeth. Draconians, evolved from apex predators, hierarchical society. They see other species as either threats to eliminate or resources to use. Charming, muttered Lieutenant Mitchell. Our mission is to assist the Arcturians while minimizing further draconian aggression. Wright continued. We're not at war with the Draconian Empire, at least not yet, so we need to be careful. Sir, Lieutenant Perez spoke up, with all due respect, what exactly are we supposed to do? Even with all 5 ships of the 7th Fleet, we're outgunned. Captain Wright looked at each of his officers in turn. Sometimes the oldest tricks work the best. The Draconians expect the Arcturians to be helpless. They won't expect us. And they certainly won't expect what we're going to do. Back on Earth, Admiral Miller stood in the Launch Control Center as the 5 ships of the 7th Fleet prepared to depart. Besides the USS Vigilant, there was the USS Steadfast under Captain Linda Howard, the USS Dauntless commanded by Captain Eric Taylor, the USS Resolute led by Captain Nicole Bennett, and the USS Intrepid with Captain Ryan Foster. None of the ships looked impressive. Their hulls showed patches and repairs. Their designs were a generation behind the sleek vessels now protecting Earth. But each captain was among the best tactical minds in the fleet, and their crews, while serving on outdated ships, were skilled and dedicated. Godspeed, Miller whispered, as the 5 ships engaged their engines and moved away from Earth's orbit. On the bridge of the USS Vigilant, Captain Wright watched the blue-green sphere of Earth grow smaller on the view screen. Course set for the Arcturus system, Lieutenant, Mitchell reported. Engage fold space drive on my mark, Wright ordered. Let's go help some aliens. The 5 old ships vanished in flashes of light, heading toward a distant star and an uncertain welcome. The weakest fleet humanity had to offer was on its way, to face one of the galaxy's most feared powers. The odds didn't look good, but humans had never been very good at accepting odds. The journey to the Arcturus system would take 5 days using the fold space drive. For the crew of the USS Vigilant and the rest of the 7th Fleet, it was 5 days of preparation, planning, and fixing whatever broke along the way. Lieutenant Kevin Mitchell kept a personal log during the journey. Day 2 in fold space. The Vigilant's backup systems kicked in 3 times last night. Engineer Garcia hasn't slept. Captain Wright called a meeting with all department heads this morning. We studied everything we know about Draconian ships and tactics. It isn't much. In the engineering section, Lieutenant Commander Alan Garcia and his team worked around the clock. The fold space drive was putting strain on the old ship's power grid. Garcia wiped sweat from his forehead as he adjusted the coolant flow for the 5th time that day. How's it looking, Chief? Asked Captain Wright, who had come down to check on progress. Like trying to run a marathon with a broken leg, Garcia replied. But we'll make it. I've rerouted power from non-essential systems. As long as no one wants us hot showers or full gravity in the lower decks, we should be fine. Wright nodded. Do what you have to do. On the bridge, Lieutenant Lisa Perez was running combat simulations. The results weren't encouraging. In every scenario where the 7th Fleet directly engaged an equal number of Draconian warships, the Earth vessels were destroyed within minutes. There has to be a way, she muttered, resetting the simulation. Perez had graduated at the top of her class in tactical operations. She wasn't used to problems she couldn't solve. Meanwhile, in the science lab, Dr. Patricia Clark was studying all available data on Arcturian biology and culture. Humans had been spacefaring for only 75 years, making them newcomers to the galactic community. Their knowledge of other species was still limited. Fascinating, she said, reading a report from one of the few human scientists who had visited Arcturus Prime. They communicate partially through telepathy. They can sense emotions and intentions but not read specific thoughts. Any tactical advantage there? Asked Captain Wright, who had come to check on her progress after leaving engineering. Maybe, Clark replied. The report suggests they can't read draconian minds well, something about their brain structure being too different. But they might be able to sense if we're genuinely trying to help them. Build trust faster. Wright nodded. Good. Any weaknesses we should know about? Their skin is sensitive to certain frequencies of light. Draconian weapons might be calibrated to take advantage of that. And physically, they're not built for combat. In the communications center, Lieutenant Owen Jenkins worked to establish contact with the Arcturians. The distress signal had contained basic communication protocols, but making contact across light years of space while in fold space was tricky. On the 4th day of travel, Jenkins finally succeeded. Captain to communications now, he called over the ship's intercom. Wright arrived minutes later. What have you got? A response from Arcturus Prime, sir. It's weak, but it's there. The main screen showed static, then cleared to reveal the face of an Arcturian. Its blue skin seemed pale even for its species, and its large eyes showed what humans would recognize as fear. This is Zaxal, leader of the Arcturian Defense Committee, the alien said, its voice translated by the ship's computer. Are you the Earth response? I'm Captain Ethan Wright of the United Earthship Vigilant. We received your distress call and are on our way with a small fleet as requested. The Arcturian's expression changed subtly. How many ships? 5. Wright answered. Only 5? Zaxal seemed surprised. We are grateful for any assistance, but the Draconian force is substantial. How substantial? 12 warships. They have established mining operations on 3 of our moons. They're stripping them of resources. When we protested, they attacked our orbital stations. Wright kept his expression neutral. 12 against 5, and Draconian ships were better, armed and armored. We'll arrive in approximately 24 hours, Wright said. Can you send us tactical data on the Draconian positions? Yes. We will transmit what information we have. Zaxal paused. Captain Wright, my people are not warriors. We have never faced an enemy like this. We are afraid. Understanding. Fear is the beginning of courage, Wright said. We'll be there soon. After the communication ended, Wright called an emergency meeting with the captains of the other 4 ships in the fleet. Their faces appeared on separate screens in the Vigilance conference room. We're looking at 12 Draconian warships, Wright told them. They're mining the Arcturian moons and have already attacked orbital stations. The Arcturians have minimal defenses. 12 against 5, Captain Linda Howard of the USS Steadfast said grimly. And those aren't just any 12 ships. We need unconventional tactics, Captain Nicole Bennett of the USS Resolute suggested. We can't win in direct combat. Captain Eric Taylor of the USS Dauntless nodded. What about our old ECM systems? They're outdated by our standards, but the Draconians might not be familiar with them. Worth exploring, Wright agreed. Let's pool resources. I want ideas from every department on every ship. What if we don't fight at all? Captain Ryan Foster of the USS Intrepid suggested. The mission is to help the Arcturians, not necessarily to destroy the Draconian fleet. Wright considered this. We'll keep all options open. Meeting in 8 hours to finalize our approach. Let's get creative, people. On the final day of travel, the 7th Fleet prepared to exit fold space. Engineers made last-minute repairs. Tactical officers reviewed what little they knew about Draconian weak points. Medical staff prepared for casualties. Exit from fold space in 3, 2, 1, Lieutenant Mitchell counted down. The Vigilant shuddered as it returned to normal space. The stars reappeared on the view screen, along with the red giant star of Arcturus and its planets. Scan the system, Wright ordered. Multiple contacts, sir, Perez reported. 11, no, 12 large vessels in orbit around the third and fourth moons of Arcturus Prime. And debris, sir. A lot of debris in higher orbits. The remains of the Arcturian defense ships, Wright said quietly. Captain, we're being hailed, Jenkins reported. It's the Arcturian orbital station. On screen, Zaxal appeared, looking even more distressed than before. Captain Wright, thank you for coming. But his large eyes took in what he could see of the Vigilance Bridge. Your ships are not what you expected, Wright finished for him. They are smaller than I anticipated. And older. Our scans show significant wear. The 7th Fleet isn't Earth's newest or largest, Wright admitted. But we're here to help, as requested. The Draconian commander has demanded our surrender by tomorrow. They are threatening to destroy our cities if we refuse. Wright's expression hardened. Then we don't have much time. I'll shuttle over to your station in 1 hour to discuss strategy. After ending the transmission, Wright turned to his crew. The Arcturians asked for our help, and that's what they're going to get. They may not think much of our ships, but we're about to show them what humans can do with outdated technology and a little ingenuity. The crew of the Vigilant exchanged glances. They had trained together, suffered through system failures together, and somehow kept their old ship running against all odds. Now they would face their greatest challenge yet. Prepare my shuttle, Wright ordered, and tell the other captains to start implementing Operation Trojan Horse. The Draconians are about to learn that humanity's weakest fleet is still a force to be reckoned with. Captain Wright's shuttle docked with the Arcturian orbital station. The station had seen better days. Scorch marks from Draconian weapons scarred its gleaming white exterior. Inside, the halls were dimly lit, with emergency power routing to essential, systems only. Zaxal met Wright at the airlock. In person, the Arcturian leader was taller than Wright expected, standing nearly 7 feet high. His slender frame and delicate movements reinforced Dr. Clark's assessment that Arcturians weren't built for physical conflict. Captain, thank you for coming in person, Zaxal said with a slight bow. Please, follow me to our command center. Wright had brought Lieutenant Perez and Dr. Clark with him. Security Chief Paul Martinez, a stocky man with quick eyes, completed their group. As they walked through the station, they saw Arcturians hurrying about their tasks. Many stopped to stare at the humans with large, curious eyes. Your people seem surprised to see us, Wright commented. You are only the 3rd human delegation to visit our world, Zaxal explained. And the first military one. The command center was a large, circular room with screens showing the planet below and the surrounding space. Several Arcturians worked at control stations. In the center was a 3-dimensional display of the Arcturus system, with red dots, marking the positions of the Draconian ships. This is the current situation, Zaxal said, gesturing to the display. The Draconians arrived 15 days ago. They established mining operations here, here, and here. He pointed to 3 moons of Arcturus Prime. When we protested, they destroyed our defense fleet and damaged this station. What are they mining? Asked Lieutenant Perez. Quantium, another Arcturian answered. This one wore what appeared to be a scientific uniform. I am Vila, chief scientist. Quantium is rare in this part of the galaxy. We use it for our research, but the Draconians use it for weapons. Wright studied the display. Can you show me the locations of your planet's defense systems? Zaxal and Vila exchanged uncomfortable glances. We have no planetary defense systems, Zaxal admitted. Our species has evolved beyond the need for weapons. We believed diplomacy would protect us. Until now, Wright said. Until now, Zaxal agreed sadly. Wright turned to his team. Lieutenant Perez analyzed their tactical data. Dr. Clark worked with Vila to understand what we're dealing with. Chief Martinez assessed their security personnel and capabilities. The human team dispersed to their tasks. Wright continued his discussion with Zaxal. The Draconians have demanded your surrender by tomorrow. What exactly are their terms? They want unrestricted access to all our moons and their resources. They want us to provide workers for their mining operations. In return, they promise Not to bombard our cities from orbit. Slavery, in other words, Wright said grimly. Yes, we cannot accept these terms, but we cannot fight them either. That's where we come in, Wright assured him. But I need to know everything about your people's capabilities, even non-military ones. While Wright and Zaxal talked, Lieutenant Perez was dismayed by what she saw in the tactical data. Their ships outgun ours in every category, she told Wright when they regrouped. Shields, weapons, speed. The only thing we might have is maneuverability with our smaller vessels. Dr. Clark had better news. Captain, the Arcturians have advanced sensor technology that they use for scientific research. We might be able to adapt it to penetrate draconian shields. And their security situation? Wright asked Martinez. Practically non-existent, sir, the security chief reported. They have emergency responders, not soldiers. They've never needed them before. Wright nodded. Thank you all. Now, Zaxal, I need to contact my fleet. Back aboard the USS Vigilant, Wright met with the other 4 captains via secure channel. He outlined what he had learned. The situation is worse than we thought, he concluded. The Arcturians have no defenses and no fighting experience. So what's the plan? Asked Captain Howard of the USS Steadfast. Operation Trojan Horse with modifications, Wright replied. Captain Taylor, is the Dauntless ready for its role? Captain, Taylor nodded. My engineer says the old girl has one last good fight in her. Good. Captain Howard, I want the Steadfast and Captain Bennett's Resolute to position yourselves behind Arcturus Prime's largest moon. Stay hidden until my signal. What about my ship? Asked Captain Foster of the Intrepid. The Intrepid will protect the Arcturian station. If our plan fails, you're their last line of defense. After the meeting, Lieutenant Commander Garcia approached Wright with an idea. Captain, I've been thinking about our outdated shield generators. They operate on frequencies the Draconians might not be expecting. If we modify them to pulse at irregular intervals, we might be able to confuse their targeting systems. Do it, Wright ordered, and work with the engineers on the other ships to implement the same modifications. In the communications center, Lieutenant Jenkins made a discovery. Captain, the Draconians use quantum communications. Very advanced, very secure. But our old radio systems operate on completely different principles. We might be able to jam their communications without them, realizing what's happening. How long would the jamming last? Wright asked. Maybe 10 minutes before they adapt. But that might be long enough. Make it happen, Wright ordered. In the medical bay, Dr. Clark was working with a group of Arcturians. They were curious about humans and eager to help. Their telepathic abilities are fascinating, Clark told Wright later. They can't read minds, but they can sense emotions and intentions. They might be able to tell when the Draconians are about to attack, giving us advance warning. Meanwhile, Security Chief Martinez had started training a small group of Arcturian volunteers. They're not soldiers and they never will be, he reported. But they can help evacuate civilians if things go bad. And some of them are willing to learn basic self-defense. As the day progressed, the orbital station's sensors detected movement from the Draconian fleet. 3 ships are breaking formation, Lieutenant Perez reported. They're heading toward the station, estimated arrival in 30 minutes. They're probably coming to collect our surrender, Zaxal said. Good, Wright replied, surprising the Arcturian leader. That gives us an opportunity. What do you mean? Zaxal asked. We're going to let them see exactly what they expect to see. A primitive human fleet with outdated technology, and a frightened Arcturian population ready to surrender. Wright turned to his communications officer. Lieutenant Jenkins, open. A channel to the Draconian fleet. Channel open, sir. This is Captain Ethan Wright of the United Earth ship Vigilant. We request a meeting with the Draconian commander to discuss the situation regarding Arcturus Prime. The response came quickly. A reptilian face appeared on the screen. The Draconian scales were dark green with red markings that Wright guessed indicated rank. I am Commander Vextar of the Draconian Empire, the alien said, its voice deep and harsh even through the translator. What is there to discuss? The Arcturians will surrender or we will destroy their cities. Perhaps we can reach a compromise, Wright suggested, sounding deliberately uncertain. Our fleet is prepared to assist in negotiations. The Draconian made a sound that might have been laughter. Your fleet? 5 outdated vessels? We detected your arrival. Your ships would not last 5 minutes against a single Draconian warship. Nevertheless, we are here on behalf of Earth, Wright said, allowing a hint of fear to enter his voice. We request a meeting before any final decisions are made. Commander Vextar studied Wright for a moment. Very well. I will come to the Arcturian station with 2 of my ships. The rest of my fleet remains on alert. Any treachery will result in immediate planetary bombardment. Understood. We await your arrival. After the transmission ended, Zaxal looked at Wright with confusion. Why did you appear afraid, and why invite them here? Wright smiled for the first time since arriving. Because, Zaxal, sometimes the best place to spring a trap is where your enemy feels most confident. The next few hours were a flurry of activity. While the Draconians approached, the humans and Arcturians prepared their trap. Captain Wright gathered his team to review the final plan one last time. Remember, we only get one shot at this, Wright told them. If we fail, the Draconians will destroy Arcturus Prime's cities. Lieutenant Perez pointed to the tactical display. The USS Dauntless is in position here, appearing damaged and adrift. Captain Taylor reports all systems are ready. The USS Steadfast and USS Resolute are hidden behind the moon, Wright continued. They'll remain silent until my signal. The modified shield generators are ready on all ships, Lieutenant Commander Garcia reported, and the EMP devices are complete. They're not pretty, but they'll work. Communications jamming is ready to deploy, Lieutenant Jenkins added. We can block their quantum communications for about 10 minutes. And the Arcturian volunteers? Wright asked Security Chief Martinez. As ready as they'll ever be, sir. 20 of them will help us on the station. The rest are coordinating evacuations on the planet just in case. Dr. Clark spoke up. I've been working with Vila. The Arcturians have modified their sensors to penetrate Draconian shields. They can now target specific systems. Wright nodded. Good work, everyone. Now we wait. The 3 Draconian warships arrived with an impressive display of power. They were sleek, dark vessels that resembled predatory sea creatures from Earth. Each was 3 times the size of the USS Vigilant. They're hailing us, Jenkins reported. On screen, Wright ordered. Commander Vexitar's reptilian face appeared. I will board your station with a delegation in 15 minutes. Be prepared to finalize surrender terms. We'll be ready, Wright assured him, still maintaining his facade of nervousness. After the transmission ended, Zaxal turned to Wright. I sense great confidence from the Draconian commander. Good, Wright replied. The more confident he is, the less he'll suspect what's coming. The Draconian shuttle docked with the station 15 minutes later. Commander Vextar emerged with 6 armed guards. In person, the Draconians were even more intimidating. They stood nearly as tall as the Arcturians, but were heavily muscled with thick armored scales. Each carried an energy weapon that Lieutenant Perez recognized as far superior to Earth's standard sidearms. Welcome to Arcturus Station, Zaxal greeted them formally. Vextar barely acknowledged the Arcturian leader. His yellow eyes focused instead on Captain Wright. So you are what Earth sends to protect its allies, the Draconian said with obvious contempt. Pathetic. Wright bowed slightly. We are here to facilitate negotiations, nothing more. There are no negotiations, Vextar snapped. Only surrender. Take me to your command center. As they walked, Wright noticed how the Draconians kept their weapons ready. They expected resistance but weren't particularly concerned about it. Their arrogance was a weakness the humans could exploit. In the command center, Vextar surveyed the displays showing the positions of all ships in the system. He seemed particularly interested in the USS Dauntless, which appeared to be drifting with minimal power. That vessel is damaged? He asked. Yes, Wright replied. A fold space drive malfunctioned during our journey. Vextar made a dismissive gesture. Primitive technology. Now let us proceed with the surrender. Zaxal stepped forward. Commander, surely we can reach an agreement that doesn't involve silence, Vextar snarled. Your people had their chance for diplomacy. You refused our initial terms. Now they will be worse. Wright exchanged a glance with Lieutenant Perez. It was almost time. Commander, Wright said, drawing Vextar's attention back to him. Before we proceed, there's something you should know about humans. And what is that? Vextar asked, clearly uninterested. We have a very long history of warfare, thousands of years. During that time, we've learned that sometimes the weakest force can defeat a stronger one through cleverness rather than brute strength. Vextar laughed, a harsh sound that reminded Wright of grinding metal. Philosophy will not save the Arcturians, human. No, Wright agreed. But this might. He pressed a hidden button on his wrist communicator. Throughout the station, the lights flickered momentarily. Now, Jenkins, Wright called into his communicator. Across the system, Lieutenant Jenkins activated the communications jamming system. On every Draconian ship, communication systems suddenly went silent. The confused officers tried to restore their quantum links, not realizing that the primitive radio waves from the human ships were disrupting their advanced technology. At the same moment, the USS Dauntless, supposedly damaged and drifting, suddenly powered up all systems. Captain Taylor gave the order and the old ship accelerated directly toward the nearest Draconian mining operation. What is happening? Vextar demanded, seeing the change on the displays. I believe the word is distraction, Wright said, all pretense of submission gone from his voice. The USS Dauntless rammed into the Draconian mining facility at near maximum speed. The ship's old nuclear reactor, modified by Engineer Garcia, detonated in a massive electromagnetic pulse. 3 Draconian ships near the facility suddenly lost power, their systems fried by the unexpected pulse. You dare! Vextar roared, reaching for his weapon. But Security Chief Martinez and his team were faster. They had been waiting for Wright's signal. Stun weapons fired from hidden positions, catching the Draconian guards by surprise. 4 fell immediately. The other 2 managed to return fire before they too were stunned. Vextar himself proved more resilient. The stun blast that hit him seemed to only make him angrier. He charged toward Wright, clawed hands reaching for the human's throat. Wright didn't attempt to match the Draconian's strength. Instead, he sidestepped and used Vextar's momentum against him, a basic judo move that sent the alien commander crashing into a control panel. Now, Howard! Wright shouted into his communicator. Captain Linda Howard of the USS Steadfast received the signal. All systems go. Emerge from hiding. The USS Steadfast and USS Resolute powered up from their concealed positions behind Arcturus Prime's largest moon. They targeted the Draconian flagship, hitting it with precisely calibrated energy beams that penetrated its shields, thanks to the modified Arcturian sensors. On the planet below, the Arcturian volunteers, coordinated by Martinez, launched simultaneous attacks on the Draconian ground forces. They weren't soldiers, but they outnumbered the Draconians 20-1 and surprise was on their side. Back on the station, Vextar recovered and lunged at Wright again. This time, Lieutenant Perez intercepted him, using her combat training, to keep the stronger alien at bay. Captain, we need to get to the Vigilant, she called out while dodging a powerful blow. Wright nodded. He activated his communicator again. Garcia, execute Operation Firewall. Aboard the USS Vigilant, Lieutenant Commander Garcia initiated the ship's modified shield generators. They began pulsing at irregular frequencies that confused the targeting. Systems of the remaining Draconian vessels. Fire main thrusters, Garcia ordered. Bring us alongside the station. The old ship responded sluggishly but moved into position. Its weapons, outdated by Earth standards but still functional, began firing at the 2 Draconian ships that had accompanied Vextar. On the station, Wright and his team were in a desperate fight. The Draconian commander had recovered his weapon and was laying down suppressive fire, pinning the humans behind control consoles. We need to get to the airlock, Wright called out. The Vigilant is almost in position. Security Chief Martinez nodded grimly. I'll cover you, sir. Martinez stood up and fired a continuous burst from his weapon, forcing Vextar to take cover. Wright, Perez, and Dr. Clark made a dash for the exit. Zaxal and the other Arcturians followed close behind. "Martinez, come on," Wright shouted from the doorway. The security chief backed toward them, still firing. Just as he reached the door, a draconian energy blast caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. Wright and Perez grabbed Martinez and dragged him through the door. Dr. Clark sealed it behind them, then began treating the security chief's wound. "How bad is it?" Wright asked. "He'll live," Clark replied. "But he needs proper medical attention soon." They hurried through the corridors toward the airlock where they could board the Vigilant. Behind them, they could hear Vextar shouting orders to his recovering guards. "The trap didn't quite work as planned," Wright muttered. "But we've definitely got their attention now." Wright and his team raced through the corridors of the Arcturian station. Martinez limped between Wright and Perez, his face pale but determined. Dr. Clark kept checking over her shoulder, expecting draconian guards to appear at any moment. "Almost there," Wright encouraged them as they approached the airlock where the USS Vigilant had docked. Suddenly the station shook violently. They were thrown against the walls as lights flickered and alarms blared. "What was that?" Zaxal asked, his voice trembling. Lieutenant Perez checked her portable scanner. "Draconian flagship is firing on the station. Shields down to 30%. They reached the airlock to find Engineer Garcia waiting for them, his face streaked with sweat and grime. "Captain, we need to leave now," Garcia urged. "The Vigilant can't take much more of this." They hurried through the airlock and onto the Earth ship. Wright headed straight for the bridge, leaving Dr. Clark to take Martinez to the medical bay. "Status report," Wright ordered as he took his command chair. "The USS Dauntless is gone, sir," Lieutenant Mitchell reported from navigation. "Captain Taylor and his crew ejected in survival pods before impact. The USS Intrepid is picking them up now. The USS Steadfast and USS Resolute are engaging 4 Draconian vessels," Lieutenant Jenkins added from communications. "Captain Howard reports they've damaged the Draconian flagship's weapon systems. And the rest of the Draconian fleet? 3 ships are still disabled by the EMP. The other 5 are moving to engage us." Wright studied the tactical display. The situation was chaotic but not hopeless. The element of surprise had worked. The Draconians had been caught off guard by the primitive humans' unexpected tactics. "Sir," Jenkins called out. "Message from the Draconian flagship. It's Commander Vexitar." On screen, Wright ordered. Vexitar's face appeared, his scales flushed with a darker green that Wright guessed indicated rage. "You will pay for this treachery. Human. I will destroy the Arcturian cities one by one." "Not today," Wright replied calmly. "Your flagship is crippled. 3 of your ships are dead in space. You've lost your mining operations. I suggest you consider surrender." Vextar snarled. "Draconians do not surrender, especially not to primitive species like yours." The transmission cut off abruptly. "Sir," Lieutenant Perez reported from Tactical. "The 5 operational Draconian ships are forming an attack pattern. They're targeting the Vigilant." Wright nodded, thoughtfully. "They think we're the biggest threat now." "Good." "Good, sir?" Perez asked, confused. "They're underestimating the Steadfast and Resolute again. Lieutenant Jenkins, signal Captain Howard. Execute Sierra 9 maneuver." "Aye, sir." The USS Steadfast and USS Resolute immediately changed course. Instead of continuing to engage the damaged flagship, they moved to flank the 5 ships heading toward the Vigilant. "Evasive maneuvers, Lieutenant Mitchell," Wright ordered. "Keep us just in range of their weapons, but make it hard for them to hit us." "Aye, sir." The old ship shuddered as Mitchell pushed it to its limits. The Vigilant wasn't as fast or agile as modern vessels, but Mitchell knew how to get the most from the aging engines. "Captain," Garcia called from engineering, "I don't know how long the old girl can take this kind of stress." "Just give me 5 more minutes, Commander," Wright replied. "That's all we need." On the tactical display, Wright watched as the Draconian ships pursued the Vigilant, falling into exactly the pattern he had hoped for. Their formation left them vulnerable to an attack from behind, which was precisely what the Steadfast and Resolute were now positioned to do. "Now, Howard," Wright ordered. The 2 Earth ships opened fire simultaneously, targeting the engines of the rearmost Draconian vessels. The modified Arcturian sensors allowed their weapons to bypass the Draconian shields in specific spots. 2. Draconian ships lost engine power immediately. A third spun out of control, its guidance systems damaged. The remaining 2 ships broke off their pursuit of the Vigilant and turned to face this new threat. But in doing so, they presented their most vulnerable sections to the Vigilant's weapons. "Fire everything we've got, Lieutenant Perez," Wright commanded. "Target their power cores." The Vigilant's weapons might have been outdated, but they still packed a punch. Energy beams and missiles struck the Draconian vessels with surprising accuracy. One Draconian ship exploded in a brilliant flash. The other was severely damaged but still operational. It turned and fled toward the edge of the system. "Sir," Jenkins reported, "the Draconian flagship is powering up its engines. They're retreating too." One by one, the remaining operational Draconian vessels began to withdraw. The 3 ships disabled by the EMP were being towed by their companions. "We did it," Lieutenant Perez whispered, disbelief in her voice. "We actually did it." "Not yet," Wright cautioned. "Jenkins, open a channel to Commander Vextar." Vextar's face appeared on screen again, fury still evident in his yellow eyes. "This isn't over, human," the Draconian snarled. "It can be?" Wright replied. "Return to your territory and leave the Arcturians in peace. Or else." "Or else what?" "You've been lucky today, but the Draconian Empire has hundreds of ships. We will return with a proper fleet. And Earth will respond with a proper fleet as well," Wright said, his voice hardening. "What you faced today was our weakest, oldest vessels on the verge of being scrapped. Imagine what our newest ships could do." Uncertainty flickered across Vextar's reptilian features. "Additionally," Wright continued, "I've transmitted records of this encounter to Earth Command. By now every species in the galactic community knows what happened here. The mighty Draconian Empire, defeated by Earth's outdated ships and a race of peaceful telepaths." Wright leaned forward in his chair. "How will that look to the other powers? How many of them might reconsider their relationships with the Draconians? How many might seek alliances with Earth instead?" Vextar was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice low and controlled. "This matter will be reported to the Imperial Council. They will decide our next actions." "I look forward to their decision," Wright replied. "In the meantime, the Arcturus system is under Earth's protection." The transmission ended. The bridge crew of the Vigilant looked at Wright with newfound respect. "Sir," Jenkins broke the silence. "Message from Earth Command, Priority 1. "Put it through," Wright ordered. Admiral Miller's face appeared on screen. "Captain Wright, we've received your preliminary reports. Impressive work." "Thank you, sir. The Draconians have withdrawn for now, but they may return with a larger force. We'll be ready if they do. In the meantime, you should know that word of your victory is spreading. We've received communications from 6 other species requesting assistance against various threats." Wright raised an eyebrow. 6? Miller nodded. "It seems your weakest fleet has made quite an impression. The 7th Fleet will not be decommissioned as planned. In fact, you'll be receiving new orders soon." After the communication ended, Wright turned to find Zaxal standing at the entrance to the bridge. "Captain," the Arcturian said, "my people owe you a debt we can never repay. You saved our world when we could not save ourselves." "That's what allies do," Wright replied simply. "We have much to learn from humans," Zaxal admitted. "Not about warfare, perhaps, but about courage and resourcefulness." Wright smiled. "And we have much to learn from Arcturians about peace and cooperation. I think this is the beginning of a valuable friendship." The USS Vigilant, battered but unbroken, maintained its position over Arcturus Prime. The old ship had proven its worth one last time. In his quarters later, Wright recorded in his personal log, "The Draconians made a critical error. They saw our outdated technology and assumed we were weak. They didn't understand that humanity's true strength has never been in our weapons or our ships. It's in our ability to adapt, to think creatively, and to keep fighting against overwhelming odds." Today, Earth's weakest fleet became the galaxy's strongest message. Never underestimate humans, even when we appear to be at our weakest.